In this practice plan, we aim to improve the player's ability to rally through the center of the court. The center-to-center rallying situation is extremely important for beginner players, as consistency, or the ability to hit a lot of shots in a row without missing, is a fundamental skill in playing tennis. In this situation, aiming for the center part of the court gives players the best chance to make their shot. In addition to asking the player to focus on their consistency, we'll improve their performance in this situation by introducing the split step movement pattern and its timing. If the practice is effective, the player should demonstrate increased consistency as well as continue to split step in future games or practices. In this drill, the player and the coach begin in opposite service lines. The coach places a target on the center line around a foot in front of the service line. The coach feeds to or rallies with the player, alternating between the player's forehand and backhand. While aiming for the target, the player counts how many shots they can make inside the service box without missing. Next, players repeat the previous drill, this time balancing on their front foot after hitting. The player should hold their balance until the ball lands on the other side of the court. Finally, players repeat the previous exercise. However, this time the coach may hit to the player's forehand and backhand in any order, and the player must make 10 shots in a row without missing to progress to the next exercise. In this portion, the player is introduced to the practice situation. Ask the player to complete the situation statement. When we rally, we want to rally consistently by, so that both the coach and the player move to opposite baselines. The coach feeds the ball through the center of the court and then rallies with the player counting how many shots they can make in a row without missing. The coach should keep the ball in the middle of the court and hit to the player's forehand and backhand sides. Give the player several attempts before progressing. After exploring the situation, ask the player the following questions and discuss their answers. Mark the deep center situation target as shown with cones or lines. Revisit the completed situation statement and introduce the tool, in this case, the split step, by showing the player the following video example. Ask the player the tool-specific discussion questions, then use the following progression. The player begins on the baseline with the coach standing several feet away facing them. The player bounces on the balls of their feet, split-stepping when the coach shows them the ball. Next, the coach tosses the ball to the player, who split steps as the coach begins their forward swing to throw. They then move and catch. The player repeats the previous exercise, this time with their racket, moving to and hitting the ball as shown. The player should aim for the deep center target on all exercises in this section. The coach moves across the net, standing halfway between the service line and the net. The coach now racket feeds the ball to the player, who split steps as the coach begins their forward swing. The coach should drop the ball before hitting it so that the player can time their split step accurately. Next, repeat the previous drill, this time feeding from the baseline. The coach now rallies with the player, as in the situation exploration game. However, the player should continue to split step as the coach begins their forward swing. The player counts the number of shots they make in a row. If the player hits inside the deep center target, they receive 2 points towards their streak instead of 1. If the player does not split step, the rally does not count. Record the player's highest streak. Finally, the coach and player play regular games with serve and return. The player calls out split as the coach begins their forward swing. If the player makes X number of shots in a row without missing, they win the point, regardless of the actual outcome. Continue to watch for and reinforce the split step in future practices and matches. Compare the player's streak to previous streaks and look for improvement. Challenge the player to stay consistent against more difficult shots, for example, those with power, height, direction, or spin.